Hello and welcome, music creators of all kinds. I'm Marshall Shaw with more music creation ideas to help celebrate the arts in you. Today's video is about writing a comical piece of music. So we'll do these 3 steps. We're going to choose a 4-bar chord pattern with interesting chords, add playful rhythms and quirky ostinato, as well as choose intervals that inspire a humorous and playful sound. So let's hear our chords in GarageBand. I find this way of using GarageBand as a perfect way to experiment with chord progressions. Try it. I will be using StaffPad for iPad, and I prepared a template ready to go with the chord symbols and the actual chords in half notes for this melody. In other words, each of the 4 bars has 2 chords in it. So the left-hand part of the piano will be quarter note followed by a quarter rest for each bar, spelling out the root position name of that chord. So I'll speed up here and meet you at the end. Being a comical piece, the right-hand part is very important and it must be more rhythmic than the bass part. So I have chosen tick-a-tee-tee, which are basically 2 16th notes followed by 2 8th notes. And this will form a chord-based pattern built up of the notes within the chord. So if you see the first bit I've written, they're basically a C major chord with a low C, E, G, E, and a passing note on the F. If you're new to chord-based melody writing where you use the chords to spell out the melody, I do have a video I prepared earlier and I'll link it to above so you can watch that with my thanks. Writing a comical piece of music requires comical chords. So chords C, F, and G, they're fine for many pieces of music, but for a comical piece, you need to add other chords that are known for their uniqueness. So how about chord 2, the second chord, which is D major, resolving back to chord 1, C major, and then we go to something quite different, D flat major. I think you'll like that. And then back to C major, and then for something unusual, I jumped to the flat 6 chord, which is the A flat major chord. Then instead of going to chord 1 or chord 5, I continue and go up to B flat major, which is flat 7 chord of C major, and then go to something traditional, which is G major, the chord 5, leading to chord 1 of C major. But with the chord 5, you could do other things to give even more of a musical, comical sound to it. And that would be like, for instance, taking the D of the G chord and putting it as an E flat. Try it. Try some different things. So let's get rid of the chords below and let's hear our piece. Hopefully your ear heard something was not quite right. And it's that D flat major chord broken up. It should be an A flat if we're following the same style, but an A natural you could use if you wanted to keep it comedic in style. I'd like to develop the bass part a little bit in bars 2 and 4 by taking out the quarter rest, changing it to an 8th rest, and adding an 8th note that leads, in this case, to the D flat, so C to the D flat, and in the 4th bar doing the same thing on beat 2, which is the quarter rest, making it an 8th rest, followed by an 8th note, A flat leading to G. It again adds a little more interest to this bass part, which is not really too interesting. Making staccatos, that will certainly help. Let's make it quirky. So in writing this soprano saxophone part, I want to make sure it's a contrast to the right hand of the piano part. So where the piano part goes up, I'm going to try to make the saxophone part go down. That'll be my rule of thumb if I can throughout this. Another technique I'm using is writing at the end of the motif simply a low D of the D major chord as a humorous punctuation note. And notice I put a staccato on that. So let's continue, and you'll see that I'm not starting on the very first part of the beat on the second bar. So an eighth note rest with the same interval of a fifth, leading on into the D flat major chord. Like any draft, you have to hear the piece in its entirety before you sort of agree and are satisfied. It's rare when you'll write something and on the first take it's ready to go. So I know that I will need to make some modifications. Don't forget we're using passing notes in between the chord-based notes. This completes our first draft of the melody, and let's hear it now with the soprano saxophone. Okay, so I am relatively pleased with that, but do hear a few changes, a few places that I want to make a little bit different. So let's try in the first bar, let's start with that low punctuated D, and I think something better would be to make it a high D, 2 octaves above. It certainly sounds very comical, but I'm not sure I like the quality of this saxophone, so I may change that later. So what I want to do now is have a look at the chords, the soprano saxophone melody with the piano part in the right hand, and make sure they're in agreement and there's no discordant notes. So that's why I'm circling notes, putting check marks. There's no glaring errors, but I think our ears would have heard something. So in my revisions of this piece, I'll make changes that help it along a little bit better. But this is a very good practice to just go through each line, comparing it with the solo and the right-hand piano part. This is the first spot that I'm going to make changes. Sometimes the register gives the instrument a comical sound, and that's what's going to happen here. I'm going to add a Baroque style melodic articulation called a mordant, and that will give the very first note a little finger shake. Here's what it sounds like. I'll continue adding small changes. I'll add another mordant to the third bar first beat, and this one actually goes from C to D back to C really quickly. I'm going to continue to make further changes based on what I just heard. I like the idea of adding another punctuated note in the end of the third bar on a low E flat, and then the very last bar I want to have a group of 4 16th notes. I would like to finish the piece where the soprano saxophone goes to its top C and the piano left hand goes to a bottom C. Let's finish this section by adding a little bit more expression, and don't forget the best way to do that more intricately is with the automation layer. I'd like to humor myself and swap out the soprano saxophone part for another instrument. So let's have a look at the instrument view panel, and there's our soprano saxophone that's in the score now. We're going to swap it out for the clarinet, and knowing this beautiful clarinet that comes with StaffPad very well, I'm going to modify it by bringing down the volumes, and that will help balance it. I'm very fond of that clarinet. I want to bring out that low A flat, so I'm going to crescendo here. That helps somewhat, but I think it needs to have a staccato. So what I'd like to do now is try some other clarinet techniques, and one of them is adding a glissando. Too many notes. Too many notes. So I think I'll try the portamento to see if that works. I'm looking for a really heavy slur. Nothing there for sure. So available within StaffPad store are other libraries for winds, for instance, and you could try them out by listening to their samples and decide on purchasing them as an in-app purchase. Let's add a contrasting instrument compared with the piano, and this is the vibraphone, and it's going to ring out a little bit longer. So I want to just use broken chords to represent the motif or a pattern or a loop, whatever you want to call it, and it's based on the chords used in each bar. So let me just finish following this pattern throughout, and I'll meet you at the end. Now I will select it all and take it up the octave, but in certain places it will not transpose and play well. So I'll have to bring those sections down an octave. So I do that by the lasso tool, probably quite quick, the best way to do it, because it's within the bar. So let's hear our new vibraphone part. I hope you have enjoyed this video on writing a comical melody. Anything presented here can be modified and extended to fit your personal needs. I will be doing further videos on emotion-based music, so stay tuned. They are a lot of fun to do. Please take a moment to subscribe if you haven't already, like if you have enjoyed it, and select the bell icon to let you know when I have produced another video. Also, most video compositions created here are placed on SoundCloud. I recommend the app GarageBand for iPad if you want to explore chords and melody writing. It's just fantastic. Don't forget though, this version of GarageBand has no notation except graphic notation, which can be modified very easily once you learn the basics. Keep making music and celebrate the arts in you as another way to find meaning in your life. See you soon in the next video. Take care.